Welcome to Romera Records virtual cast. Today we have on JM. How's it going, man?
Hey, brother, I am blessed. I'm grateful to be here, man, and thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. So I found you from Podmatch, and basically, I just saw the things that you're doing as far as leadership and speaking. So I wanted to basically give you a chance to tell everybody about it and what you do.
Yeah, brother. So I built three companies in the financial service world, is where I came from. But what I was really good at, I didn't know anything about financial services. What I knew was leadership and building teams. And what happened with this company is I wrote my first book, Let's Go Win, for my boys. I have 17 and 14-year-old boys now. And I wrote the book, just the it was literally philosophies from my parents, grandparents, mentors, authors that I've read. And it just sent me on this journey of what the Let's Go Win is all about. So it's a philosophy of really setting yourself up to win. It's not about winning or losing. It's literally how to set yourself up to win on a daily basis. And that just led me down a cool path, man. Like I coach, executives, athletes. I work with, helping people double their business because, again, I'm good at sales, leadership, and building teams. And so, yeah, man, I do that. I have a podcast and I've written a couple books. So it's been a cool ride. I absolutely love working with the people I get to work with because every day the whole purpose of my company is to inspire people to live their best lives. So on a daily basis, if I was working with you, Jackson, it'd be like, hey man, how are we going to get you to whatever your dream is? I get to do that every single day. It's a beautiful thing.
So when did you start doing stuff like this?
I mean, when I my first companies, I was doing the same thing. I just didn't ever put it as being a coach. So I read about 30 to 40 books a year, depending on the year. And so I know a little about a lot of subjects. And the two subjects that I know a lot about would be leadership, sales, and I guess personal development. So I guess there's three. And so these previous companies, although I might be, my title might be chief leadership officer or CEO or whatever the title was, but what I really did was coach people on how are you living your best life? Because the truth is, in business, you see people all the time, they're crushing it financially, but their health is a mess, their relationships are garbage, and I was in the same boat at my second company. I mean, literally, my wife and I were separated for almost a year because everything looked good on the outside. I was making seven figures plus a year, yeah, so financially things were great. But my wife and I were not in a good place. We are now. I mean, it's been 19 years we've been married, but there was a period of time where literally I was almost 300 pounds. My wife and I were separated, and it was miserable. So I can speak to people from a place of knowledge, not just being an armchair quarterback. Like, hey, this is a reality that can happen so fast because we're so focused on business or whatever we're focused on, we forget what really matters.
Yeah, and I think within the past few years or so, who was it? Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, were going through marital problems, and I was like, well, there you have it, people. Some of the richest men on the planet are still having issues when it comes to relationships. So it's something that a lot of people think, well, if I just have this much money, then all my problems should go away, but it's not the case.
Well, Steve Jobs on his deathbed, literally $7 billion net worth, he said, I would give it all back for another day. Just, I would literally, and he talks about what does it matter if you're wearing a $3,000 watch or a $300 watch? What does it matter if you're driving a $150,000 car or a $50,000 car? They're both getting you to the same place. So I think the real perspective does come, unfortunately for most, too late, where it's like, well, what does matter? And there's a great book. It's called The Top Five Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. And she was a palliative nurse. She took care of people as they were literally on their last legs. And there wasn't one person that said, gosh, I wish I did another board meeting.
Mm.
They don't say that, man. They're like, I wish I had spent more time with my family. I wish I had lived my authentic life. I wish I had pursued my dreams. And that's the perspective I try to apply every single day is look, I don't believe in having regrets. So how can I do that? I'm going to give everything I have every single day, just like you and I right now, man. Like this is my world. You and I'm going to give everything to Jackson in his show. And when I go to the next thing, I'm going to give everything to that. And when you do that, it's like, oh, what is there to regret? I'm giving everything I have. I'm having a great time doing it. I'm living my dream. I think that's a pretty good way to go. Unfortunately, often people don't do that until it's too late.
Yeah, and I'm a huge football fan. I'm from Alabama, so big Alabama football fan. And they had Coach Nick Saban there, and something that he would always say is "Be where your feet are," and
Mm.
that's just saying, stop thinking about where you're going to go and all that kind of stuff. Focus on where you're at right now because that's how you can make the most impact. Because if you're too busy thinking about other stuff, then you might miss an opportunity or you might miss the ability to capitalize on what you're doing right now. And so, like what you were saying, like right now, you're giving me your all for this podcast. And then when it's over, it's over. Then you have to go to the next thing and give it your all on that. And I think a lot of people miss that because they're too busy trying to think about other things, worried that they might mess up. But you're messing up right now by not thinking about what you're doing.
That's it, man. Talk about a great leader, right? Again, whether you like Alabama or you don't, obviously you're a fan, a great team, an incredible history. That coach alone, what he's saying is it's brilliant because I have another saying that I use past is pain, future is anxiety, present is everything. Now, that doesn't mean everything in your past is painful. It means if you're sitting in this present moment thinking about how great it used to be, what are you saying about today? And if you're feeling anxious about whatever's going to come in the future, you're wasting a ton of energy and time because everything you have control of is just this moment. Nothing is guaranteed in the future. So if you stop worrying about what's going to happen, because most of the time we're wrong anyway, that's why his statement is so brilliant because be where your feet are. I love that because you can't do anything about the future and you can't do anything about the past. You can only give everything you have in this present moment. But again, we lose sight of that all the time because, life is busy. We get thrown so much at us. Life has distractions. But if you can remember that, and it's a great quote, I didn't realize he had said that, but I will absolutely, use that as well because it makes sense. It's like be right where you are right now.
Yeah, and something that a lot of people will take from that is that they need to be able to control, where their head is at. And I think sometimes if you are like you were saying, if you're worried about the future or the pains of your past, then you're not going to be in control of where your head is at. And that's how a lot of people, they just develop all kinds of anxiety and they just worry all the time. And it's like, hey, you can get past that by just thinking about what you're doing right now and develop that skill of just being present. So yeah, that's something that I definitely am a big fan of is people taking advantage of their current opportunities. Do you feel like that people, if they do stuff like that, they start to take more risk or they start to be more conservative? I'm not sure how you have the different people that you've worked with in coaching and stuff like that, how they usually take being that more present type of mentality.
Yeah. So, well, it's a great question. And here's why. They take more risk if they're clear on their why. When people are really clear, like this is my why. So, for instance, my boys, my wife and my boys, that is my why. That's why I get out of bed every single day to go do what I do. Right. That's why I work as hard as I do to make a living. Is so that they want for naught everything. If they really wanted it and they were willing to work for it, that I can provide that. But oftentimes people aren't clear on that, right? And people are looking for, I don't know, security or what they say it is. But when you dig down, you say, hey, what is your true why? And whenever that is, what if it's freedom, which is a huge thing for me, then they will take more risks because in order to create freedom, you have to take more risk. And that's the misnomer of the whole thing. It's like security doesn't really exist for the most part. You have to put yourself out there, and the more that you risk, the more you're rewarded. So to answer that question is, when I get to the root of their why, now they're going to take more risks. Now they're going to put themselves out there, because doing anything but their very best, doing anything but putting themselves out there, it just doesn't work. And if they're not willing to, we're just not going to be a good fit. And that's one of the things I'm very upfront about. Like, look, not everybody is going to love me pushing and challenging you. And if you don't have that growth mindset, no problem. We're not going to be a good fit for one another.
Does it seem like people might have a difficult time finding out what their why is? Some people might, they might be afraid to admit, what their why is, or it just might be hard for them to think about what keeps them going, what motivates them.
Yeah, man. Again, a very insightful question. The reason most people don't know what their why is because they don't take the time to sit with themselves and find out. So, for instance, I created Let's Go Win from doing a 3 day meditation by myself in the woods. Literally, I had a tent and a gallon of water. That was it for 3 days. It was part of a personal development thing I was doing for 10 days, but 3 of those days, it was just me and nothing else. I couldn't write, I couldn't read. I literally had a tent, water, and me. And when you have that much time, you have nothing but you and your thoughts. That's when you can really arrive at what really freaking matters to me, man. Like, what is the most important thing to me? But in this world of distractions, we have our cell phones, we have social media, we have the Super Bowl, then it's the All-Star game. And look, I watched the Super Bowl last night. It's fantastic. And I'll watch, some of the All-Star activities for NBA next week. I'm good with that. But make sure you're giving yourself time to just you. Don't constantly be scrolling or living someone else's life or someone else's agenda. That's why email is such a, it's not toxic, but it's someone else's basically task list for you.
Mm.
And so that's what I tell people. It's like, look, man, spend time with just you so that you have clarity on where you want to go. And if you're willing to do that, literally, if you're willing to go for 3 days all by yourself, or 3 hours for all I care, just you and your thoughts, you're going to arrive at some pretty clear conclusions on what you want out of life.
Yeah, you were talking about like living other people's lives or thinking about other people's lives. That's something that I thought about with the people that I follow on Instagram. One time somebody asked me, because I was talking about how I don't follow many people who like have a blue check or, are just famous on Instagram. And somebody was like, why don't you follow anybody like that, like your favorite artist or anything? I was like, I can't relate to them. Like
Mm.
they're living a completely different lifestyle than me. So why would I want to look at that all day? And they were like, I never thought about that. And I was like, there you go.
No, sure. And I mean, look, social media has a lot of benefits, but there's definitely some that are not. Like, it creates people feeling like they're not good enough because everything is curated. It looks like everyone is having the greatest lives in the no, that's not true. That's not reality. And so look, use it for what it's good for, like to really like the positive, use that. But there's so much toxicity. I'm actually not a big social media person outside of positive content because that's how I try to live my life. Does that mean it's always positive and sunshine and rainbows? No. Just like everyone else, we have challenges. Like my neighborhood right now, I'm surrounded by these entitled people. It's amazing, Jackson. Like I don't understand it. It's not something I'm a kid from Montana. Like this is what you get. This is me on stage. This is me off stage. Like I don't wear masks. I used to, but I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that are so insecure, dude. And I don't understand it. I actually feel bad for them when I step back, but it's one of those things where I see a lot of that with social media. So my point to that is make sure to give yourself you time, whether it's meditation or journaling, because that's really where you're going to come with some really positive, amazing, profound moments, not scrolling all the time.
Do you feel like when you have to work with somebody like that, that it can be very difficult to get them, I guess, more grounded, more back to zero if they feel that like entitlement or if they feel like, things should be going their way?
So, one of the most profitable, I don't know how you say it. This woman was paying me an obscene amount of money to coach her. Like, it's shocking, honestly, how much, because I was like, no, you're not for me. And what happened is about 3 months into it, I told my wife, every time I spoke with this, I won't say her name, when I spoke with this woman, it drained me. Literally, it didn't matter how much she was paying me. I think it was like 5 grand an hour or something to coach her on something. And that amount didn't matter because I was literally drained the moment I was done with her. I didn't have anything else to give. My point to that is I won't work with people if they feel entitled. If you're not truly a person that is willing to be both a giver and a receiver, if you're just focused on just what's good for me, we're not going to be a good fit. That's not the way I work. But I had to learn that, right? It was like I was new in coaching and I felt so blessed that this person wanted to give me all this money to coach. But the truth is, I was just a high paid therapist. I wasn't helping her because she didn't want to hear anything I had to say, or she certainly didn't want to apply it. Now, does that mean I won't work with people like if they're hard headed or they don't get it? No, of course, because early coaching, it's hard to really understand that, I can get better. But she was so set in her ways. I finally just had to let her go. I said, look, um, I'll call her Joan. Joan, you and I are just not a fit. I wish you the very best, but I think you should find somebody that just tells you what you want to hear because everything I told you, you're not really listening anyway. So I'm not being fulfilled, and it's certainly not helping you get to where you want to go, or at least what you told me you wanted.
Yeah, and if people have that kind of mindset, as you were saying, you felt like a borderline therapist, sometimes people they want you to just reassure what they're already thinking. Like they just want you to say the things that they already believe, or they want you to be a yes man, like, oh, so and so did me wrong. Like, yeah, 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 they did you wrong. But sometimes you need people to just be honest with you, be brutally honest with you, and that's what's going to help you get over stuff. Like I actually manage artists, musicians, and one of them called me the other night and was trying to get reassurance on a song that we had did together because somebody had criticized their song. And I had to tell him, I was like, opinions are opinions. Like if that person came with you with facts, then that would be different. But that was their opinion on how things were going. And she was calling me just for me to agree with her. But I told her, I was like, look, I'm trying to give this an unbiased, because me and her made the song together. I was like, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. That person might, they could be right, quote unquote, but what they're saying is just an opinion. So don't take that to heart, but just be focused on the fact that they just had something to say, and it's just, those are just words. So don't don't focus on that part. But yeah, sometimes people, they get caught up in what they're doing, and they might take things too personally when they get criticism. But if somebody's trying to help them out, like what you do in coaching them and give them advice, then it's important for them to heed the words you're actually saying instead of just hoping that you're going to say what they want to hear.
Yeah, brother, this is a huge point. I'm so glad you said that. Look, feedback is absolute gold. Try never to take it personally, because the truth is it is just their opinion. It doesn't make it right, as you stated. Like, I have an opinion, it doesn't mean that I'm right. It's just that's my belief, that's my lens. You have an opinion, that's your right, that's your lens. But what I would say to that is there's every time somebody gives me feedback, I don't care if they're like, you're an asshole, I don't like you. Okay. All I ever say every time is thank you. Because the truth is, there's somewhere in there that I showed up that made them feel a certain way, and their feelings are just because they're their feelings. So every time you get feedback, you just say thank you and dig a little deeper. So what specifically about that song didn't you care for? Was it the beat? Was it the melody? Was it the lyrics? What was it? And just hear them. Again, it doesn't mean go change it. It just means take that in and say that doesn't resonate with that particular person. And by the way, I don't care what you do. Mother Teresa had people that hated this woman. That just goes to show, like, look, it doesn't matter if you're the greatest human being walking this planet. People are going to hate and some people are going to love, and that's okay. That's just the way the world works. But I will say, the one thing I tell all my clients, feedback is gold, and anybody that's willing to give it to you, just say thank you, because it is literally, there's something there that you can build from.
Yeah, and there's probably people out there that saying the Chiefs are a bad football team. Like, it's no matter what you do, people are going to criticize what you're doing. So, as you're saying, just thank you and keep it moving, because it's not, it shouldn't stop you, and it shouldn't, be a hinder to your life. So just keep on doing whatever you're doing. It's that is great advice for real. So actually, I want to get back to like when you opened this and you were telling me about your life and everything. So you were overweight and you were making good money. A lot of people, as we were talking about earlier, you were saying that, or I was saying about, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, having money, and people think that fixes all the problems, but you were explaining all the issues that you were having in your personal life. How'd you dig yourself out of the hole?
Yeah, man, great question. I had to get quiet myself. So my wife and I are separated. Now I don't have the kids other than 50% of the time. That led to a lot of me time, time to look in the mirror and own what is really happening. Like, not pointing fingers, which is how it started, right? Like, my wife is this and that business is that. No, look, you have to own it, because the truth is you are a part of that. You can't be in a marriage and not have your own faults. I promise you. And I did. So when I finally looked in the mirror and said, what do I want? Well, what did I want? I started this. I built that business for my wife and kids and for their futures. So wait a minute, I'm going to lose them in the process? That doesn't make any sense. So I just had to start to reevaluate. And that's where I started working on the three things I coach on. Take care of your mind, your body, and your soul every day. Because in order to be a leader, you have to lead yourself first. And what I realized is I wasn't doing that. So for me to go ahead and try and lead people when I'm not taking care of me first, it didn't work. And so it was just a process of really getting back to the core of who I was. And that was the second part. I wasn't being authentically myself. So when I first started being a leader, I thought you had to look a certain way, sound a certain way, and I was wearing suit and tie. Now, to those people that love wearing suit and tie, cool. Do you. It just wasn't me. Like I said, man, I'm a pretty simple kid from Montana. I'm usually jeans and tee kind of guy, and that's authentically who I am. Well, that's how I started to apply it in everything I did. I was completely vulnerable in every way, shape, and form when it comes to business, to my relationships, to my health, to say, look, you're overweight. And I had to just look at myself in the mirror and be like, dude, time to get back to being the athlete that you were. I mean, I played basketball in college, I played sports all through life. Where did you lose yourself? And once I came to those answers, it became really easy, because now I'm not hiding anything, right? My wife and I were able to repair our relationship because I was being completely honest with her. And it literally, what's crazy, brother, is going back, there was only two reasons, at least in her mind and mine, that it wasn't working. And hers was simple: no more drinking and driving.
Mm.
How easy is that? In this day and age, Uber, walk, freaking whatever, find a way to, but, or stop drinking altogether. Like, you're going to lose your relationship over not drinking and driving. No, of course so I was like, no problem. That was her, like, one non-negotiable. And mine was really simple: no negativity before 9 a.m. Like, that's my me time. To be like, you could tell me the world is falling apart, but do it at 9:01. From whatever time I wake up till 9, it is just, it's beautiful, man. And I don't look at my phone. I don't see anything negative, and that allows me to show up as the best version of me. When we set those two boundaries with one another, oh, brother, it was like everything was kumbaya. Now, does that mean we don't have arguments? Of course we have arguments. But I know that my non-negotiables for her is I don't drink and drive. I won't do it. That's her thing. And she is so respectful of keeping everything positive until after 9 a.m. And it's crazy that it was that simple, but it really was for us. So it was a long process for sure, but I'm so glad it happened. That's the other thing. I am so grateful that it happened because I now know where I never want to get to again. I take care of my body every single day. I do these things so that I don't get back to that place again.
Yeah, communication is a weird thing. Like sometimes we feel like we're communicating, especially if you have a spouse, because you spend so much time with that person that you think that they're reading your mind and you forget that they aren't. So you might be playing thoughts in your head every day that you think that they know already, or you think you had the conversation with them already, when in all reality you never verbalized your feelings or your thoughts to them. And so you end up getting really frustrated with them for like no reason, because like, oh yeah, I didn't even have the conversation with them. So yeah, that's it makes sense on how such simple things can help build a relationship up and create progress, because you never actually had that conversation before. You never actually verbalized, how you were feeling or how you were thinking about those two subjects. And those are reasonable things, like not drinking and driving and not being negative. Like that's very reasonable.
Yeah, and this applies to relationships, it applies to business. So often people aren't willing to have the crucial or hard conversations because they don't want to hurt their feelings. So instead, they'll literally build up resentment that leads to divorce or business partnerships breaking up. That's where it's like, no, have the conversation, be respectful, but there's not a conversation I'm not willing to have in this entire planet. I'm willing to have it because I want to understand. So I seek to understand how you're feeling. But it's so true what you said, man. We think people know how we're feeling, they don't. Just like you don't know, I hear it all the time. Well, they're doing this. Well, is that true? How do you know that?
Mm.
How do you actually know how they're feeling? You have no chance of knowing how they truly feel unless you ask them. But we do it all the time, man. We're like, oh, so and so is this way. Well, how do you know? Do you know their background? Do you know everything they've gone through? Of course you don't. It's impossible. So you literally need to just have that conversation.
Yeah, and something you just said made me think about this, about just the respect aspect of it. Because, like, if if you are going through a bad relationship and you feel like you're going to break up with somebody or get a divorce or whatever, if you never actually have tough conversations, you probably lose respect for that person. Like, when y'all end up separating, you probably end up you're not going to talk, or you're not going to even like be friends or anything like that, because you have just completely lost respect for that person. But if you are like honest with them and have those tough conversations, even if you do separate, you'll probably still might talk every once in a while, or just catch up, be Facebook friends or something, just because you have respect for them and you're not going to badmouth them, because like they gave it their all. They actually talked to me. They actually communicated with me. So that's something that I think most people don't really realize, is that could mend your future problems, is by just giving that person the respect of talking to them, being eye to eye with them, having that close communication. That can be huge.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've done coaching for a long time, and here's what I've figured out. People want a couple things in life. They want to be happy. All of us. I don't care if you're a man, a woman, tall, short, fat, skinny, black, white, none of it. We're all want to be happy. That literally, you can boil it down to that. It doesn't matter where you came from. We all want to be happy. So when you realize that for a second, now why can't we have any conversation? I will talk to anybody about, people are like, don't talk about politics or religion. Why? I'm curious. It doesn't mean I agree with you. My sister and I are polar opposites on this subject, like especially politics. Like she is one way and that's her world, and I respect her. I love her. Doesn't mean I agree with her, but
Mm.
I'm willing to have the conversation so I can understand it. That's what is so fascinating to me is like people try to put labels on people. Well, I'm sure you. So Jackson is in the music industry and he's from Tennessee, so he's this. Those are all labels, by the way. Jackson is a completely deep human being with lots of layers to him that you'll never understand or know unless you actually get to know a little bit more. And so I say it all the time, man. Boxes or labels are meant for boxes. They're not meant for people.
Mm.
And we all do it, right? We say this person, this woman is beautiful or she's whatever, she's fat or she's skinny or whatever. That's a label.
Mm.
Now, that makes it easier for you to say something, but what great. What about that? Why does that matter? So it is one of those things where it's like, look, people want to be happy at the end of the day. Why don't you just go get to know them a little bit better? Stop putting labels on them and start getting to know them. And when we can do that, oh man, it opens up so many possibilities. I'm not saying it's easy for people because, again, we've been taught and conditioned to label people certain ways. But the truth is, everyone wants to be happy. And I don't care where you're from. I have learned that they want to be happy, they want to be healthy, and they want to be wealthy, which, by the way, are the three core values of my company: happy, healthy, wealthy. Because I figured out after years of coaching, wait a minute, this is all everybody wants.
Mm.
And it looks different for everybody, but that's the core basics of what they want. They want to be happy, they want to be healthy, and they want to be wealthy. And by the way, I'm not speaking financially necessarily. I'm speaking wealth in terms of relationships, wealth in terms of spirituality. And yes, of course, being wealthy, financially is a good thing because you can do so many amazing things with life, freedom, and whatnot. But those are literally the three things I figured out people want.
Yeah, and the happier you are, the wealthier you'll feel based off of the things that you have. Like if you see somebody who doesn't really have much, but they seem happy, and you have a lot and you're not that happy, you like, why are they happy? They don't have this, they don't have that, but it's like they're content with what they have, so that's what makes them happy. So yeah, all those things like happiness, health, and wealth, they can all help each other and they can all create the other one. So that's definitely a great philosophy to keep in mind for people. So I was going to ask, do you have some things that are difficult for some people to grasp, like some concepts that when you're coaching people, they're like, oh, that doesn't really work for me, or that's not what I do. But you're like, hey, listen, this this works. Just shut up and listen.
Yeah, brother. Again, another great question. So 20 years, I tried to change people. For 20 years, I tried to change people. Here's the deal. People don't like change. Like literally that it's that simple. People don't like change. But there's a word, and literally my third book is called upgrade. Everyone loves to be upgraded.
Mm.
Well, it's the same damn thing. So, for instance, if you're going to the airport and you're sitting in coach and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Henderson, we're going to go ahead and put you in first class." Are you mad or are you happy?
Happy.
Yeah, man, of course you're happy. You're like, "Hell yeah, first class. Let's go. Champagne, like this is fantastic." But it's a change. You change your seat from coach to first class. And I mean this sincerely. It took me that long to figure out the word upgrade. People upgrade their cell phones on a yearly basis. They upgrade, they love to upgrade. And what the deal was is when I try to change someone, what I'm saying to you is there's something wrong with you. And the truth is there's nothing wrong with the coach seat that you had, but the first class seat is just a little bit better. So to answer that question, yes, there's a ton of concepts, but I actually, again, I looked in the mirror and said, wait a minute, you're making them feel a certain way when you're trying to help them, but the truth is you're trying to change them. Stop doing that. Upgrade people in a way that to let them know, hey, Jackson, there's nothing wrong with you, brother. You're an amazing person, but could we be a little bit better today? Yeah, let's upgrade. That has changed my coaching. It has changed the way businesses, it accelerates their growth so much more because again, they're in a good place. They're a good company, but could they be upgraded? And we all can. So that's probably that when you ask that question, yeah, I could give you certain things that I coach on that would be tough, but this is the biggest philosophy change I had to have is instead of trying to change somebody is literally just help them upgrade.
That is a fantastic mindset. As you said that, the airplane thing, I was like, oh my God, like that that's a perfect analogy because that's there if I've been on any plane and I have seen somebody have to change their seat or somebody have to get up and move, and it's like, hey, you're sitting in my seat. Like people get so disgruntled because it's like, oh, I got to move my baggage. I put it in the bin behind this thing and it's closed, and people just get so upset about that. But to tell somebody like, hey, we need to change your seat to this first class seat, and that they're instantly going to be happy. It's like, huh, you would have been upset if we just moved you over an aisle. But yeah, that's a fantastic mindset. Like, did you have a situation that kind of made you think about that, or what brought you to that conclusion?
It's a good question. I need to figure that out. I don't recall the exact moment, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was doing a coaching session. I can't even remember who the client was. And I used the word change. And then I said, actually, I had something about they had upgraded their cell phone. And I was like, holy shit. How have I not seen this? I'm like, so you'd like to upgrade, right? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I mean, literally, brother, years of coaching where I'm like, damn, why was that so hard to see? Right. And since I've applied it, it's just made my life so much easier. The results for my clients are so much better. Like I had a professional golfer one time. He literally had missed 12 straight cuts
Mm.
when I took him on as a client. And here's the only thing I really did to help this guy. I asked him one question. I said, well, I asked him a couple questions, but why did you start golfing? Because I love it. I said, do you love it now? And he's like, F no. I mean, he just went off. And I was like, why don't you just start loving it again? Well, dude makes 4 out of the next 5 cuts, goes top 50 in the world next year because he started to love the game again. I
Mm.
didn't do anything but ask him 2 questions and said, why don't you give yourself permission to just start loving the game again? And dude, it got him in this place. So I didn't change him. I just literally upgraded his thinking for a minute to say, why did you start playing? Well, I did it because of this. And so it's just crazy, man. I use this often, but it's a good question. I need to figure out the exact moment because it was one of those like, moments where you're like, oh my gosh, like 100%, this is going to change everything I do. And so yeah, it's that book up there, Upgrade is that was my third one, and it was a fun one to write.
Yeah, I mean, you might have had the plane situation happen to you, which is very rare to for somebody, especially just a random person, you notice them get upgraded to first class. So, but that would be a situation where you'd be like, man, like they had to completely change their situation. Or if you're renting a car and you rented, the low class vehicle, and then they upgrade you to something better, like those types of things, usually people would be upset about, but that upgrade mentality is very crucial in the details of what's happening in your life. So yeah, you did say people don't like change, and that's something that I think, especially for successful people, is hard for them to do because they're like, well, I'm successful. I got here doing what I'm doing. When you ask them to just tweak, just change a little bit of things that are in their life, how do they usually handle that? Do they handle that with like, okay, hey, I'm talking to you because I believe in what you do, or are they skeptical?
Yeah, so this is where you just dig back again to the why. So if I was coaching you, it'd be like, "Hey Jackson, what are you looking for, man? What if I could bring you to X, why would that be better for you?" And so then I just let them start talking. So for instance, I double every company I've ever worked with. What I tell them is, look, I'm going to double your revenue in the first year. That's just my track record. Okay, cool. That's great. You're going to make more money. We're putting extra zeros in your bank account. Fantastic. But why is that important? And when we can get to that, now anything I say they're open to because I get to the reason that they want that. So why do you want to double your revenue? Because I want to grow to more offices. I want to have more freedom in my life, whatever the answer is. And now everything that we start working on, we go back to that. So when we're upgrading your mindset or we're upgrading your business or your leadership or whatever it is, we go back to that why. Remember, we're doing this so that you have more time and freedom to be with your family. And now people are really receptive to, okay, I could do that. I'm open to that. But if I just go in like we're gonna do this, 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 and this, people are like, no, man, this is the way I've done this for years. Why are we changing it? We're not going to change anything. We're just going to upgrade based on what you want.
Yeah, and I think the way that you approach that is very crucial in asking them, like, hey, what do you want? Like, most people, they forget to ask that question when they're working with people because they go into it maybe kind of selfish. You know, they go into it like, okay, how do I want you to be? How do I want you to go? Like, if you had did that with the golfers, like, oh man, you just need to do this and then you'll be a better golfer. And it's like, you might have missed the one thing that was going to help him, and that was just he wasn't having fun. Because you might have assumed he was having fun because it's golf. Like everybody who is a professional golfer knows that they've found the cheat code in life, and that's doing a leisure thing as your professional sport. Like you're not having to bump heads with somebody like in football. You're just literally doing something that I think like Phil Mickelson and some other people, they're like in their 60s and they were professional golfers. So that's something that you were able to tap into is that ability to say, "Oh, what is it that you actually want?" And then I'm just going to help you get to that point because if I was just trying to just find it myself, then I might have missed it.
Yeah, so I do this with self-limiting beliefs. There's three questions. And audience, if you're listening, write these down because you can do it for yourself all the time. Whatever self-limiting belief you have, I'm not worthy, I can only make so much money. Like that was my relationship with money was not a great one because of limiting beliefs that I had inherited from my parents who had inherited from his dad. And so like this was generations of it. But I always ask these three questions. Is that true? Whatever self-limiting belief, you're like, I'm not pretty enough. Okay. Is that true? Second question, why do you believe that? And that's where you'll hear like other people have said it to me. So I'm shy. This would be a good example. I'm shy. Okay. Is that true? Yes, it is. Okay. Why do you believe that? Because I've been told that my whole life. This is how I feel, blah, blah, blah. The third question, how is that showing up in your life? Or is that serving you today? And normally the answer of all these self-limiting beliefs are I believe it. No, it's not true. I believe it because people have told me that, and no, it's not supporting what I want to be. And that's where you get to make whatever shift you want to be. So if you were shy for 44 years, on your 45th birthday, you can wake up and be the most outgoing person in the world if you choose to, if that's what you want to do. And so it's those three questions, man, I've eliminated or helped people get over self-limiting beliefs by just saying, is that true? Why do you believe that? How is that serving you or how's that showing up in your life? And it's like, oh my gosh. Well, mom, dad, brother, sister, whatever have told me for years, but that's not true. That's just their labels that they put on you.
Yeah, and something that you were just saying about, is that true? Like I think sometimes people forget, or they say that sometimes we tell ourselves a lie for so long that we think it's a truth now. And if people are doing that, then that could be very detrimental to their progress as a person because they just been lying to themselves for so long. And it could be a I guess a good bad lie however you want to twist it. If like you're telling yourself I'm the best and I do this the best, nobody else is better than me, that probably is a lie depending on who you are. And if you are just telling yourself that all the time, you might end up slacking off. You know, you might be like, "Oh, I don't need to do that because I'm the best." And then there's somebody else out there who's telling themselves they're not the best, and that's what's motivating them. That's what's getting them to keep going. And so sometimes those truths that you need to be brutally honest with yourself, that can definitely help. So that's a fantastic tactic that you're doing to be able to help people to get the most out of who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah, and look, apply it if the label supports you. Like for instance, if somebody's trying to lose weight, I'd be like, all right, you know, are you an athlete? Are you whatever? I'm a runner. Let's say that that's how we're going to lose the weight. Are you a runner? No. Well, maybe that's a label you want to put on yourself
Mm.
because it's going to support your journey and use it. That's the funny thing about labels. If it supports who you are, showing up as the best version of you, use it. If it doesn't, get rid of it. It's our story, man. That we get to tell the story of who we are. And every single day you get to choose that story. And it's funny, man, because we're in charge of two things in this world, like completely, is our attitude and our activity. No one has any influence on our attitude or activity. And people will be like, no, man, people have influence on my attitude. No, they don't. You're choosing to let them have it.
Mm.
And no, man, my sister or my wife, they can absolutely get me fired up. Okay, cool. But just so we're clear, you're choosing to let them get you fired up. They don't have that power unless you give it to them.
Yeah, and people they struggle to differentiate that mindset from whatever they're currently doing, because if you're struggling with being the person that you want to be, you might end up blaming other people and not realizing that you're doing it. So just allowing people to have that kind of influence over your life, you might view that incorrectly when in all reality it's like, hey, you're just putting the blame on somebody else instead of just owning up for your shortcomings, which, okay, yeah, it might take a bit for you to understand that you're doing that, but at some point you have to kind of get over it and be able to do what you need to do to become the best version of you. So something else that I want to ask is, when you are working with people and it seems like they're progressing, when do you say, all right, I've done my job? Or is it just whenever they feel like they're ready?
Yeah, again, another great question. I think it's known at some point where it's like, I'm good. It's become habitual, whatever we're working on. So here's the great news. Most of the businesses that when they double their profits, if they don't continue having me as a partner, or maybe it was just profit share, typically what happens is either it'll go two ways. They'll go back to what they're doing before and then they'll hire me again, or they'll have made it a habit and they just continue to rise, because that's the truth, is we're just trying to create habits and it's a part of our routine. So it is one of those things where I don't have a ton of turnover because we're constantly evolving and working on things. But if somebody is truly like they've hit it to where they're like, look, man, I'm good. Awesome. I that nothing makes me happier than when they have truly made it a habit. So, for instance, my son, he's a very good tennis player. He's going to go play at Marquette next year. And I constantly am talking to him about his mindset and creating habits when it comes to meditation, mantras, breathing. Well, it took probably, gosh, about a year and a half of me reminding him on a daily, like, hey, did you do your meditation? Did you do your breath work? Did you do your mantras? And I would ask him every single day. I haven't had to ask him for the last probably now 2 years, because it's literally just become part of who he is. He wakes up and he's going to do his breath work, then he's going to do his meditation, then he's going to do his mantras. And so that's when I know it's like, okay, you're good to go. I don't need to ask you. Now, there's other things we're working on now, but that particular part was ingrained, and so he was good to go. So that's kind of how I do it, is like, look, you made it a habit, or you're good to go. Cool, man. And that makes me happy.
What I mean, I know you just said that's what makes you happy, but like, what is the one thing from what you do that you're like, this makes me the most happy for how I'm helping people, for how I'm coaching people. This is the one thing that I hope that I can get out of it, because I do think sometimes people aren't selfish enough by thinking about, what do I want out of stuff. So what is something that you can say, hey, like, this is what I hope to get out of it, because this is how I like to help people. This is what my true goal is.
When I can ask somebody, "Are you living your best life?" and they can literally look at me in eye to eye and be like, "Yes." I literally, whether it's through my coaching or whatever, that they are truly fulfilled. Their buckets are filled. That's when I am like, that fills me up in a way that I can't explain. So this happened for me early in my financial career. There's a guy named Tim. Tim came from kind of a tough background up in the Detroit area. And he literally, I don't think he had made more than like $27,000 a year. Now, after 1 year of working with me, he was making over 150 grand. But I don't care about the money. I care about the fact that Tim never thought he would make more than like $40,000 a year. To him, $100,000, it may have been a million. There's no way with his limiting mindset that he was going to get there. Well, Tim made that and now has since jumped the next level and continued on. That to me is one of the most, it's not the money. Again, that's not the piece. It was the fact that his mindset changed, that he knew that truly sky's the limit, that I am worthy of being able to do anything. I am truly, he's so talented. This guy was so freaking talented, but he was conditioned to think, well, my parents are this way, my grandparents are this way, therefore I'm going to be this way. I was like, dude, that's all bullshit. Just so, I mean, it's cool you tell yourself that story, but just so we're clear, that's BS. Once he decided that, you know what, that's not my story, I'm going to create my own, nothing makes me happier. So that started early in my career. And again, the golfer, that's another one I look back on where it's like, wow, he just asking a couple questions and now he's loving life. One of my first clients at Let's Go Win, I helped him lose 80 pounds in 6 months. I'm not a weight loss coach. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a trainer, but we did some habits. And here's the other thing. He lost weight, which is cool, but he found himself.
Hmm.
He was so confident, and now he literally met the love of his life. They're married, they have a child now, and it's like, that's cool to me, brother, because that, yeah, for him it was losing weight, but it was so much more than that, man. It was letting him find himself again and find that confidence.
That's awesome that you are able to pick that out, because I think that when we really find out like what's making us happy by helping other people, because that's what I do with my musicians. Like, I'm helping them, and sometimes I have to. Reason why I asked you that is because I want to hear somebody else's opinion, their thoughts on what's helping them, because I have to ask myself that. I'm like, why am I helping them? Like, what am I really doing, and what am I really getting out of it? And a lot of times, is as like what you said, is them being able to help themselves, like them being able to be at a point to where they're happy because of what I did to get them to that point. And I think that it's a very special feeling. It's a special feeling to be able to help somebody be sustainable. It's like, me and my wife, we don't have kids, but that's like what you're doing with your kid. Like, you created a child that is now successful in something in tennis, and that they're going to be able to perform at the next level at Marquette. Like, you were able to help somebody, do something and develop them from being a baby to being a tennis player for Marquette. Like, it's a crazy concept when you think about the challenges and evolution that you can help somebody go through, and that's really what coaching is about. So yeah, I definitely commend you for doing that.
Well, thank you. And I have to say real quick, I have a little bit of work envy because you work in music, and music to me, so my biggest trigger in life, my biggest positive trigger is a song by Eminem. It's for whatever reason, this song just triggers me in a great way. Like I could be having the worst day. I put the song on, boom. I am literally, it's like I run through a brick wall. But music does that, man. And I think how blessed you are to work in that amazing industry. And I'm not saying that's all great. I'm sure there's challenges and all kinds of nastiness in that industry. But when you think about music for a second, music literally makes the world go round. Like, so when you were talking about that, I was like, damn, how lucky you are. And how that is just such an amazing thing that you get to do every day. How music shapes our life and how dull and boring our life would be without it. So, brother, you have to be blessed every single day. And I know you look, man, you seem to be a happy guy as is, but man, you get to work in music. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun because as I was just saying, not only am I helping other people accomplish their goals, but that's the fulfillment that I get out of it, and seeing them be happy because of what I've done for them is awesome. Like we have a place here in Memphis called the Memphis Listening Lab, and it's a publicly funded. You know, they're always asking for donations, and I think the city helps out. But you can just like have a little room where you can have like listening parties and you can play music. And so I got one of my artists set up an event, and people got to go there and listen to music. And he has a song on his album called Sugar Honey Iced Tea. And we ended up passing out tea to everybody. We just gave people bottles of tea, and he has a song called Boom, and I don't know if you know that Boom Chicka Pop, but that popcorn we gave
Yeah,
out
yeah.
bags of Boom Chicka Pop just for just those little things, and I think it makes that special. You know, he didn't ask me to do any of that. I just thought those would have been cool to have at his event, and I'm sure it means the world to him that we did stuff like that. But as I said, that's the reason why I brought that question up to you is because I like knowing people's motivation and seeing the different people's their why. The why am I doing this? So that was awesome.
Yeah, man. Again, I have not been blessed to work in the music industry yet, but I think of how amazing music makes our world. It truly, literally. I mean, there's not a moment that I don't have some form of it going on. And if you stop and think about that for a second, like those artists, they're bringing that joy and love to our life. It's incredible. So anyway.
Well, let's about that time. Let's wrap this up. Go ahead and give everybody like your info, websites. I see your books behind you. Just whatever you got.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So let's go win. Let's go win.com is where you can find me. Instagram is probably where I have the most traction. Let's go win 365. DM me, hit me up, man. I love interacting with human beings and just getting to know. So, and yeah, the Let's Go Win podcast. So if you enjoyed what I had to say at all, connect with me. I love helping people with Let's Go Win at life. And so yeah, hit me up.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for all the knowledge that you shared because it's always great to hear how somebody has conquered their past and is helping other people do the same thing. So it was definitely awesome having you on.
Jackson, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. It was a great experience. You're a great host. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.